you've got to learn to combat the sort of micro rejection with a macro topic. So if you've got somebody who's fighting you on down payment and it just seems like we've just randomly chosen to have a higher down payment as opposed to explaining to them, in 2019 we did, about 200 deals, and of those 200 deals, a little bit over $100. And what we realized was that the only deals that we began to struggle with and that we began to have payment issues with and we began to have performance issues with were the deals that had the lower down payment, or the people were sort of engineering their equity. In other words, there was no real equity, but it was a wholesale where the wholesaler, said, well, I don't need to take all my fee now. You can use the rest as equity, all that type of stuff. That's where we started to lose ground and lose traction. And we spent a big chunk of the tail end of 2019 into early 2020 sort of babysitting our bad borrowers. And we're not in the babysitting business. We like to lend money, we like to collect interest, and then we like to get paid back. That's how simple our business is. In fact, if anybody here is looking for a thrill, this isn't the business to be in. This should be a very boring business. We're making it fun, but it should be boring. We lend money, collect interest, and we get paid back. So when you're talking to somebody about down payment, you explain to them that that was the case. So instead of going out to the market 5, 10, 15% down, we decided to set it at 20. Because when we looked at our portfolio, the folks who put down a legitimate 20% equity, the likelihood of them defaulting dropped by 100%. We have no defaults in our portfolio for people who put down 20%. So if you were in the lending business, Mr. and Mr. Borrower, what would you do, right? Do you want to take that extra risk of picking up more business, taking 15% down, but the likelihood of default is, 30% higher? Doesn't make sense. So as a lender, we've decided to hit the market with 20%. We understand that doesn't work for everybody, but there'll be a time when you might get tapped out with your borrower, the bank doesn't show up or takes too long, and you need us to close. That's kind of where we might be a good fit if you really, don't have the liquidity to do a high down payment, or a 20% down payment. That's the way you combat it. Then they understand. Then it's not just like we're clueless, or it's not just like we're out of touch. It's like, got it. So we're willing to let Easy Street lose, or we're willing to let Noble lose, or we're willing to let Avondale lose in some cases, right? In order to have the best portfolio in the country. At some point, those down payments are going to drop too as things become more competitive and the volume, stays a little bit low. Secondary markets are going to have no clue. Then we'll change the story. But for now, I think the story I just gave you is the story that you should use. And then any objection that you get that seems micro in nature, you just take it. Everything can go right up top to the macro point, and you explain the business. Here's why we charge, here's why we're charging no point. Here's where we're charging 1 point. Here's why we have a $250, or whatever it is, $300 servicing fee. Here's why we have this. Here's why we have that. You can explain things, because nothing we do in our company currently is not strategic. Everything we do is strategic, from the postcards to the post to the IG to my own Instagram, which is hopefully you guys can use to kind of help tell a story in some cases of how we do what we do and what is our company identity. So with all that, there's no objection that you can't overcome, or at least sidestep and explain, and that will set you up to do business with those people later on down the road. We got to continue. I haven't said it in a long time, but we really got to have a hyper long-term focus. And that's how you got to look at it, at every single objection that you get. You're not going to get pricing objection. You might get an interest rate objection, but as you know, we've got flexibility. And in that call, Alex, you saw it on Friday, Tommy's client, we just said, fuck it, we'll go 9%. Like, we can do anything, So you can never forget that either. And if you really get into a little bit of a bind, trying to, shake me and Tommy's head and say, dude, this guy's actually a good borrower, let us jump on the phone and let us make those discretionary decisions for a lower down payment, lower rate, or whatever, We're not boxed in at any point in time.